Hello everyone and welcome back to another vlog video. Today I'm going to be reviewing Ready Player 2. I listened to the audiobook. I think it came out like a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, right before Thanksgiving. Ended up finishing it just a couple days ago. Been thinking about it for those few days. I'm going to give a quick review on it. And then about the first section of this review is going to be spoiler free. And then we're going to move into kind of spoiler territory after that. I'll let you know when. So, if you haven't read the book or don't want to be spoiled, you can listen to the first portion of this video, and then I'll give you a warning when I'm going to get into the actual spoiler discussion to the book. So, I listened to the audiobook, picked it up on Audible, bought the first book back when it came out, like in 2011. Really enjoyed it. Listened to it. I've read it twice, basically. Um, Read it back in 2011 when it first came out, and then watched the movie in 2018. I actually saw the movie twice as well. And then after seeing the movie, I listened to the audiobook again. Will Wheaton reads the audiobook for both Ready Player One and Ready Player Two. So he does a pretty good job. The exception being, I think his British accent is not great, but that's kind of like the only complaint with his kind of like reading style that I could find. I think he was fine in both books here. That being said, going to get into the review of this. I did not like this book as much as the first one. I think the first one was a little bit better paced. I think it had a better plot, and of course, I think the concept was pretty cool at the time. And I don't know if this really needed a sequel. So I think the sequel, I think Ernest Cline kind of like went through a lot of his best material, kind of right away in Ready Player One, and I think feels like he was kind of struggling a little bit to kind of like fill the pages in Ready Player Two. Um, I think his writing style has kind of like the more I read him, the less I kind of like the his style of writing. So again, like I said, read Ready Player One when it came out, really liked it. Then saw the movie, read the book again, or listened to it, I should say. And I didn't like Ready Player One as much the second time. I started noticing a few things of his that I didn't really care for. Then listened to Armada. I think that's also been read by Will Wheaton. I think I read that right after my second reading of Ready Player One, and didn't really like Armada. Armada is probably my least favorite book by him, but Ready Player Two is pretty close. So it has some interesting concepts in it. Ready Player Two does, but I don't think it really plays those concepts very well. Or maybe I think a more talented writer would be able to kind of more fully explore those concepts, and we'll get to those concepts in the spoiler portion of the review. But I think my review of this is probably going to be like a 3 out of 5, maybe a 2, maybe like 2.5, 2.5, 3 out of 5, probably a 3. But originally I gave the original book like a 5, and I think I kind of rated or Armada with a 3 as well. I think this is slightly better than Armada, but it's not amazing, not anywhere near like the original book was. So that's gonna do it for the review. The review is didn't really care for it that much. I might revisit it in some years, but probably not. So again, 3 out of 5 for Ready Player Two, and now we're gonna move into our spoilers. So if you haven't read the book and don't want to be spoilers, you can stop watching now, or if you don't care about spoilers, you can continue listening. So our spoilers for the book, there's a few things I really did not like this time around. First of all, I think they made Wade. They really kind of backtracked a lot on his character. His character got criticism for being too perfect the first time around, and I feel like Ernest Cline took that criticism and basically just did a complete 180 on Wade instead of more subtly changing him, making him a more believable character. They just made him a more terrible character. And what I mean by that is his attitude is a lot worse. He's not so friendly to Artemis in this point. They break up. They have a disagreement. He is kind of like a jerk. Like he basically starts abusing his power. Like he has the magic robes that allow him these super user access, like access to the Oasis. And he says like if people are talking smack on him or talking bad about his friends, he will just straight up kill these people's avatars and stuff like that. So that to me kind of was very like off-putting. Even like I don't like I said I think Ernest Cline kind of projects himself into this character at least initially, and I think when he took criticism for the character being too perfect the first time, he kind of basically just completely, like instead of like changing him subtly and making him more believable, they just did a complete 180 on him and made him like basically like an evil version of this character, basically. The character does kind of have like a redemption arc through the book, but it's not that great in my opinion. So the things I did not like about this book is the references. I liked the references the first time around in the first book. I really didn't, and I kind of excused a lot of the writing with them based on the fact that this was something that had this was his first book, or I think the first one that his that I read anyway, and the concept was so cool I didn't really care. But there's references in this book that I don't feel he needs to actually explain. It puts a bad taste in my mouth when I'm reading or listening to a reference and then he takes the time to actually explain what the reference is. For example, there's he gets like an email or like a communication thing saying to go to the 13th floor of his company, go to Vault 42, type in the access code 8675309. I think that's it. 8675309 to get in there. And then he feels the need to describe what the 13th floor is. Like a lot of times it's like a secret lab kind of thing. Explain the number 42 and make a reference about the song that features that phone number. A lot of stuff that a lot of people that are reading this book will already get, but he feels a need to explain it. So like I kind of don't really feel like I feel like I'm kind of being talked down to when I'm reading some of these portions of the book where it feels like he's putting these references in and then going out of his way to make sure that the reader understands what it's from. I think, like I said, I think a lot of people that are reading this book are going to know what this stuff is and are going to get the references without the explanation. So it feels like he's kind of just talking down to the reader when this happens. I don't like that at all. Um, the one thing something else I really didn't like about this book was the first third of the book doesn't really do anything. It basically is just Wade kind of not doing like he's kind of being a dick most of the time. So he's like they find this new technology, or it's given to them, called the ONI, which is this new headset you put on. It's not a VR headset, or it is a VR headset basically, but it taps into your brain and it's more basically makes it more immersive. This is one of the things I did like about the book because it was this headset feels like a kind of a natural progression of the technology. Like you had very basic kind of VR setups in the original book, and then you could buy better versions of those setups by you getting like the full body rigs and all that kind of stuff to have like the sensory feedback and all that. This thing basically goes beyond that and it goes right into your brain, so you can actually like smell what a smell would be like in the Oasis, or if you eat something, you'd be able to taste it. And if you were getting hit with something, you would feel it. Even though they say like that, like if you get like punched in the Oasis, there's the software doesn't allow you to actually get fully like feel the full pain from a punch. It's a little bit dulled, but it's basically a full immersive experience. That the ONI headset was actually pretty cool. Um, but basically they spend the first like third of the book talking about this headset, talking about how each of the high five or high four at this point, because one of them, spoiler in the last book, died. But the high five group is spending their money. Some of them, like Samantha, are using it to try to like end world hunger and a bunch of other like charitable things. And Wade is kind of doing that by providing internet to low income families and all this other stuff. That to me isn't great because like the entire one concept in the first book was the Oasis is cool and all, but sometimes you need to spend time in reality. And then basically in the second book, in this book, they're saying, oh, reality is not great. We have this new technology now that will make you basically forget about reality entirely. And then what Wade is doing is then providing basically internet access to people that wouldn't maybe be able to afford it, which just feels like he's kind of like this weird, like he's basically getting these kids addicted to the internet, be like even though they probably are addicted to the Oasis, even though they probably shouldn't be. Samantha disagrees with this, and they kind of break up over this. There is another character that basically another quest happens as well. So there's another Easter egg hunt. This time, instead of finding the keys and the gates, they're trying to find these 7 crystal shards. Only Wade can actually interact with these because like the riddle is my heir must pay a toll to get these shards. However, they mention that, and then they don't mention it again until like the almost the end of the first third of the book, where Wade actually has to get the help of another character named Lohengrin. I think I'm pronouncing that name correctly, who basically discovers it, but that their character can't actually access or like grab the thing because like basically whenever somebody else grabs this thing, it their hand passes through it because they're not the heir of like, they're not Halliday's heir. So what happens is he gets help there, and then eventually after like the first third of the book, like almost like 4 hours into the book is like almost like I think like 15 hours maybe 14. Um, like you're 4 hours into the book before the main plot actually like starts happening, and essentially an AI version of Halliday takes over. Everybody that's connected with these ONI headsets are basically like locked in. They can't log out because if you don't log out within a certain amount of time, it might damage your brain because you have like 12 hours to basically like be connected, and then you potentially suffer brain damage if you're connected longer than that. But he basically wants Wade to find all these shards and basically give them to him, and he has a 12-hour time limit to do this. The 12-hour time limit really I don't think worked here because in the first book, you would have them solve a gate, get a key, and then they would get another clue, and it would take them sometimes months to figure out exactly what the next clue is. And during that time in the book, they would actually explain what's been going on in the Oasis, since they discovered the first gate and key. You actually have people doing just everyday stuff in the Oasis, and they're not actually doing the contest. In this one, once the second third starts, basically it's the rest of the book is basically the quest, and that's it. So I didn't really like that. The fact that it felt very rushed because I like that it was paced better in the first book. I think. One thing I didn't like though in this particular book is there's I think like six total challenges, and then basically it unlocks seven different shards because you combine them in the end. You combine them to form the seventh one. But so basically Wade saw like on his own maybe does one of the challenges on his own. Like the rest of his friends are basically doing the rest of the challenges for him, which doesn't feel it feels weird. I don't really like it. It doesn't really like help make show Wade as being a smart character because he does the first challenge that he gets helped by Lohengrin on that. The second challenge is that they have to you get a shard for doing the first challenge. Second one is he has to play a video game and beat this video game that there's a clue related to that, and basically Shoto guides him through that video game. I think the third one, I don't recall if the third one was. Yeah, so the third one, I believe there's like a whole planet that's themed about with like all of John Hughes movies. Cool planet, like really coolly like described, and like, it would definitely like seem like it'd be something interesting to see in a movie. However, they spend entirely way too much time on that challenge. After that challenge, they do one where they have to go to a math planet. They're there for like maybe in the book, maybe like 20 minutes. It feels like it goes by really, really fast. So that's one of the challenges. That's like the only one that Wade actually does on his own. Is this thing where it's like, okay, go to this magic math castle, talk to the queen, present this thing, and get the shard. It feels like it was like that was very rushed. The next planet after that, they have to go to a planet themed around the musician Prince. And I like Prince, but this planet here, they spent way too much time on this planet. So the John Hughes planet and the Prince planet are just like overly drawn out. They're overly long. They definitely like overstay their welcome. And one thing I thought very funny in the not the John Hughes planet, but in the Prince planet, is the author says something about Prince doing the music for the 1990 Batman movie, and I kind of had to pause the book right there because I'm like, no, that's a 1989 movie. It's not 1990. And I wouldn't care about that something like that because it's like a year difference. But the way the author presents himself is presenting himself as kind of this authority on this decade um, across these two books. And you would think it's like 2 seconds to Google search what year that movie came out because I clearly remember seeing it in 1989. Um, anyhow, that Prince planet is way too long. The next planet, and so in the John Hughes planet, let's go back to the planets here. So he gets first on the help first from Lohengrin on the first one. On the second one, Shoto guides him through the video game. On the third one, Artemis basically does the John Hughes planet for him. The math planet, he does on his own. The Prince planet is done by H because H is a huge Prince fan. The next planet is, I think this is the one that's based on Lord of the Rings. So like based on the Silmarillion. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. However, Wade even admits he's like, I've read Lord of the Rings. I've done all the quests for like the Third Age of Lord of the Rings. I've done all the quests on like the Lord of the Rings trilogy of The Hobbit. But I tried to read the Silmarillion, however it's pronounced. Tried to read that, couldn't get into it. I could actually feel that because I actually tried reading that book and couldn't get into it either. Anyhow, Artemis is a huge Lord of the Rings fan and ends up doing that challenge for him. So that's like five or out of like the six challenges that are not even done by Wade. Wade helps a little bit, but it's his friends doing most of it. And I don't really think that helps Wade as a character. That kind of shows that he's actually pretty useless. So that happens. Um, Basically, the plot is very predictable. Like, of course, if like you're listening to anything about like the characters earlier in the earlier book or in this one, that you find out that these shards are the pieces of Ogden Morrow's dead wife, like her digital soul, basically. And then James Halliday, or the AI Anorak, it basically like its programming gets corrupted and it basically like holds everybody captive or holds everybody hostage. And then they try to. He basically wants to recreate this AI version of this guy's wife to basically like have this guy like basically have her fall in love with him. That was very predictable. I kind of predicted that these shards were somehow related to her soul, like right away, because they made mention of it very early in the book that this lady's character, like Kira Morrow, is her character name, and her D&D character name was like Lucosia, which is named after one of the sirens of Greek mythology, and that was the name of her D&D character as well. So as soon as they mentioned like the Siren Soul and the fact that it's based on this, like her name and this is from this D&D game, it becomes obvious that that is what they are basically assembling. They bring back Nolan Sorrento, which I don't see why. He doesn't do anything in this book at all. Nolan Sorrento was a cool villain in the first book, but then in this one he's basically like he gets sprung out of jail. Like he goes to jail for all the stuff he did in Ready Player One, gets sprung out of jail to become basically like a glorified henchman and basically doesn't really even do anything. Like you could have easily written that to be a different character, or they have all these AI robots that you can that like can be controlled from the Oasis in the real world. So they could have easily just had it be one of those like kind of like security boss or something like that. So bringing back Sorrento to me was completely kind of dumb. I didn't like that at all. Um, and basically then the plot is basically Ogden Morrow gets like is being put back into the Oasis as well. He has to fight Halliday. They have to find a magic sword to basically defeat Halliday. And Lohengrin's group, is called the Low Five, is a group of friends that are basically kind of doing what they like Wade and his friends were doing in Ready Player One. However, the Low Five is really cool. There's a lot of potential there, but they completely underutilize the Low Five, which I was just like they show up once. Lohengrin talks to Wade. They show up again. They get an assignment to go get a sword. Lohengrin gets the sword, brings it to them, and that's it. My theory is that Ernest Cline probably has a standalone book with just featuring the Low Five, probably in the works. However, I don't really know how well that book would work because unless it's about stuff that takes place before Ready Player 2, I don't really know if I would like the idea of reading their point of view like parallel to what's happening in Ready Player 2. If it may like so I don't know. But Lohengrin and her friends, it's a cool group of characters. They were just like very very underutilized in the book. I didn't like that. So basically what happens then is they recreate this person's soul basically in the Oasis. She explains that James Halliday basically copied her memories, copied her brain basically without permission, put her into the Oasis, and then they basically James Halliday like were like, okay, my Anorak thing is going, the AI is going crazy. We're gonna split this thing apart so basically he can't get to it. I think, or something like that. And then at the end, it's revealed that when you're actually using this new headset, it actually makes a copy of your brain, like a digital copy, and then you basically have a life in the real world and a life in the digital world, and basically you can like exist in either. And then they have like a spaceship that they're trying to like basically they upload all their AIs to it, like all their AI minds to it, and they go about their way or whatever it is. Um, Another thing I didn't like was Wade and Samantha. They of course get back together. They break up earlier in the book, but it feels like their relationship being fixed happened way too easily and without any kind of like explanation. So like, of course, like Artemis shows back up to help them out because they're her friends. So she helps out, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, Wade and Samantha are now getting married and they're gonna have a kid. Like, there's no reconciliation. There's nothing. It's just it feels like it's like incredibly lazy writing just to basically say, oh, Wade and Samantha got back together. And they lived happily ever after the end. That's what it felt like to me. Um, So I'm gonna go just through. So that was just basically like a synopsis of what the plot was. Let's kind of go through the pros of the book and the cons of the book. So, pros to me, the ONI headset, is a cool piece of technology. Like I said, it's the kind of natural evolution of where you think like a virtual reality headset would go, at least in the time frame of this book. Um, there's some cool new planets to explore. So there's definitely like the John Hughes planet. Like I said, is cool. It's just they're just there way too long. Because basically, what happens on this John Hughes planet is every John Hughes movie is happening basically simultaneously. So basically, there at any one time there might be multiple versions of John Candy in this world because he's been in multiple John Hughes movies, playing multiple John Hughes characters. And these are all not just movies that John Hughes directed; these are also ones that he also just wrote as well. So when they mention John Candy, they mention his character from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. They mention his character from Uncle Buck. They mention his character from Home Alone, and so on. So the John Hughes planet is cool. Really like the John Hughes planet. Again, just spent way too long at that planet. Planet Prince Planet, interesting planet. Again, just there way too long. The low five, another thing I really liked. Again, like they were all just very misused. So like it seems like everything that I liked about the book has a caveat to why it isn't great. The only thing I think I liked overall was probably the ONI head. The only thing I liked without a caveat was probably the ONI headset because of it could create cool new kinds of experiences within the Oasis, and it feels like the thing that they would create next after these VR haptic rigs and all that. Into the cons, I've already covered some of them, but like I said, Wade is basically a terrible character this time around. Like he kills people. People's avatars are just criticizing him. Spies on people at one point. So basically, at one point he um, ONI headsets have cameras built in, so you can basically like while you're in the Oasis, you can tap into the cameras on your headset because it puts you in like a sleep like state, so you can kind of see your surroundings. So like if you're like in a house, you want to make sure that like people aren't breaking into it, stuff like that. He spies on Lohengrin when she's in there, and that's just like really creepy. Like I think he basically comes up with a way to justify spying on her, but it feels kind of dirty. I didn't like that part. Um, like I said, Ernest Cline took criticism from the character with the way Wade was written. It completely made him like useless this time around. Made him unlikable instead of like trying to like make him a little more nuanced. Like I said, the plot becomes very predictable. The main plot doesn't really start until a good third of the way through the book. Then again, two of the quests, the Prince quest and the John Hughes quest, are just way too long, and then the low five being completely underutilized. Um, I feel this book could have used a lot of revisions, a lot of editing. Like there was some stuff where there was just like inconsistencies between Ready Player One and this. Like Shoto at one point, they say like they're listening to something and it takes Shoto longer to respond because he has to wait for his translation software to translate what is said. But in the original Ready Player One, it said both Shoto and Daito, his brother that gets killed in the first book, they speak fluent English. So why is Shoto now getting why does he need a translator? Stuff like that. So there's just a bunch of like really weird inconsistencies. I think overall, like I said, I definitely kind of like enjoyed some of the book, but there were parts where I didn't like it all. Like I said, I liked the John Hughes Planet, just not for that long. Stuff like that. So it's definitely not as good as the first one. It's overall, I think, if it wasn't a Ready Player One book, and set in a universe that I kind of already liked, I probably wouldn't even recommend it. But if you like Ready Player One, you should probably check it out. Just go in, like take that with a grain of salt. Just know that you're not going to get a book that's, in my opinion, as good as Ready Player One. And I know a lot of people that didn't like Ready Player One. So if you didn't like Ready Player One, obviously skip this book. If you liked it, I would recommend it. But other than that, I don't think I'm gonna probably revisit it. Maybe in some years to see if they do a movie based on this, which I'd be very interested to see how they handle that because a lot of the stuff in this book, like as far as I know, Prince like was very protective of his music and like his like kind of just like his like personality basically. So I don't know if they would be able to license that planet at all, or they would just change it to a different artist. I would definitely like to see the John Hughes planet kind of like realized in a film if they were to do that. So I would probably see a film, but overall, like I'm saying, 3 out of 5, kind of disappointing when compared to the first one. So that's going to be my review. That's going to do it for now. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. We see you next time. Thanks again for watching, and take care.